Put this on the side. Shalom Israel. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Barakathum to my brothers. Yahweh Shema Thaba Hashem Yahushua to my sisters. This is Wednesday night's biblical law class. I'm Precinct Officer Radah Iwalam. Before I get into tonight's topic, for those who are tuning in on Facebook or on YouTube, if you could, like the video, thumb up the video, and share it so we can continue pushing this truth all across the world. Also, big shout out to Commanding General Yahanna for never dropping his sword, still pushing his truth, still going strong. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, sir. So the water for that. Not only is he the hardest working man in Israel, he is a father to us all in this truth, who raised us up to be who the Lord called us to be. And that's to be soldiers in the Lord's army, to be men of war and integrity, to be leaders on the front lines, defending the fatherless and the widows, raising the dead, taking care of the poor. We do what your religious leaders wouldn't do. We take care of our people. We show you how to repent, get your life together, and follow these law, statutes, and commandments. All right, so now tonight's topic, the history of King David, part 2. All right, this is the history of King David, part 2. All right, so last week we brought out quite a bit of the backstory before David came in the picture. So now, like I said before, to reign as king, first you have to be an Israelite from amongst thy brethren, like Deuteronomy 17 and 15 says, which is what we brought out last week. Normally, the inheritance of a king is supposed to be passed down to the oldest son. Now, although David was an Israelite, he was not Saul's physical father, all right? Saul had sons, but were not the heirs of his inheritance because Saul messed up. You understand? And because of his mistakes, the kingdom was taken from him. Now the Lord has found a new king who will be over Israel instead of Saul. So now we're picking right back up where we left off at, all right? At 1 Samuel 16 and 1. And for those who haven't tuned in last week, definitely check out part 1 for the backstory of everything that led up to where we are about to begin. All right, so now we're going to start at 1 Samuel chapter 16, and we're going to get right into it, man. We're going to start at verse 1. All right. So now this is 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 1. It says, "And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thine horn with oil and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons." So now, once again, Samuel was who raised up Saul in the truth. All right. So he known Saul since he was a young man. He cared for Saul like he was his own son. Samuel was the one who told Saul from the Lord that the kingdom will be taken from him. His last order from the Lord was his last chance to get it right, and he failed to carry it out. You understand? So now what we're reading right here is Samuel is mourning for Saul. All right? He's mourning for him. He's hurt that he doesn't get another chance to make things right. You understand? Which is why the Lord questioning Saul, "How long will thou mourn for Saul, seeing that I've rejected him from reigning over Israel?" The Lord said what he said is done and over with. What you still crying about it for? You understand? I found a new king to take his place. Get your oil and go. He's among Jesse's sons that I will show you. You understand? That's what the Lord told Samuel. All right. So now let's keep going. Let's get verse 2. "And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take an heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord." Now, why would Saul want to kill Samuel? Now remember, Saul raised him up as his Samuel raised Saul up as his own. So why would he do that? Well, first of all, Samuel knows, Saul knows, you understand, that the oil Samuel had with him is for who he's going to anoint, meaning who the Lord has chosen to lead over his people. So Saul knew that. You understand? He was now, he was already told that the kingdom is now going to be taken from him. So he knows that somebody else is going to get it. So what you're going to see throughout David's story is how prideful and how arrogant that Saul is going to be towards this brother. You understand? So Samuel needed a smoke screen. You understand? Samuel needed some cover so Saul wouldn't find out and kill him for it. You understand? So the Lord suggested, take a heifer with you. For those who don't know what a heifer is a female cow who haven't had a calf of her own. So think of it like a virgin cow, so to speak. You understand? So take this cow with you and say you come in to sacrifice to the Lord. Why? Because Samuel was a high priest. You understand? Let's keep going. Let's get verse 3. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show thee what thou shalt do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him who I named unto thee. So when you get there, call Jesse, and I'll tell you what to do next and tell you who I want you to anoint, whom I name. You understand? Verse 4. And Samuel did that which the Lord spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming, and said, Come as thou peaceably. So, all right. I'm going to recap why these elders asked Samuel if he came peaceably. All right. So I'm going to reiterate what happened last week, because I brought this story out with what happened. All right. So just a little bit of a recap. All right. These elders that came and questioned Samuel if he came in peace. Right. These were the elders who got together to mention to Samuel to set a king over us, which was a very wicked thing to the Lord. All right. They wasn't asking for a king among the brethren. They wanted a heathen king or a non-Israelite king to rule over them, right? And because they thought them ruling over us would be better than how the Most High ruled over us. You understand? Now, because of this evil thing that they did, right? Samuel called to the Lord and sent rain and thunder down during the wheat harvest to prove that they did something wicked against the Most High. You understand? So now he's coming back to the city and they scared as hell. You understand? And when they see Samuel, that's why they ask him, hey man, you coming in peace? You didn't come here to bring no more judgment against us, did you? Did you come in peace? That's why they're asking Samuel if he came in peace. You understand? I'm going to read it back from the top. This is 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 4. It says, and Samuel did that which the Lord spake, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming, and said, Comest thou peaceably? Verse 5. And he said, Peaceably, I am come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice. So Samuel said to these brothers, listen, I come in peace. All right. Y'all get yourselves together and meet me at this place for sacrifice. Call Jesse the Bethlehemite and his sons here too as well. All right. Verse 6. And it came to pass when they were come that he looked on Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. Verse 7. It says, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Meaning the Lord don't choose someone among us because you big, strong, and you tough. You understand? It ain't got nothing to do with your physical appearance. It's not why the Lord would choose you. The Lord seeks a man from his heart, meaning your mind, a man who's going to do the Lord's will, who's going to do what the Lord says to do. You understand? That's who the Lord is calling for. That's who he's picking. You understand? Verse 8. It says, then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, neither have the Lord chosen Salakia. Neither have the Lord chosen him. So one by one, right? Jesse's calling each of his sons up to present themselves before Samuel. Nah, this ain't the one. Nah, next, verse 9. Then Jesse made Shammah to pass by, and he said, neither have the Lord chosen this. So this is the next son that came up before Samuel. No, this ain't the one either. This ain't who the Lord chose either. Verse 10. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord have not chosen these. So now 7 of his 8 sons showed up at this sacrifice, right? So now Samuel just went through 7 of his sons, and neither of them were the ones that the Lord chose. So we're going to keep going. Verse 11. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. Now, why is Samuel asking if these were all his children? Because once again, last week when we brought this out, right, the Lord had told him that the brother that he was going to anoint, he's going to be there at the sacrifice. So if 7 of his sons were not one the Lord chose, then he must have another one that they forgot to bring with them. You understand? So Jesse tells Samuel, well, I have one more. He's my youngest, and he keeps the sheep, meaning David was a shepherd. You understand? Somebody go run out there and get him. We're not going to sit down and eat till he get here. So he had one of the brothers go out and go get his younger brother to come to the feast. You understand? So now we're going to go to verse 12. All right. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and with all of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look up to. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Now, we're going to look up the definition of the word ruddy. You understand? Because I know this is one of the precepts that get brought out that Christians want to bring out and try to prove that David was a white man, because it says ruddy. When you look up the definition of ruddy, it's going to say like red. You understand? Like red in the cheeks. You understand? So we're going to go in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary and we're going to give the definition of ruddy. All right. So now for those who have a Zondervan Bible Dictionary, I'm going to go to page, let's see. So for those who got a Zondervan Bible Dictionary, it's going to be on page 510. And we're going to read the definition of what it says for the word ruddy. Okay. Ruddy, a word used to refer to a red or fair complexion, in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews. You understand? So now, meaning, okay, so this brother walked in the council, and this was a good-looking brother. This is a good-looking brother. He had beautiful skin. He had a beautiful spirit. You understand? He didn't look like the rest of his older brothers, which was why they didn't ask him to come. You understand? Because they weren't ruddy. You understand? He wasn't like them. He didn't look tough enough. You understand? He didn't look like a killer. He didn't have no scars on his face. You understand? This is a young man, real young. He's a youth. You understand? So this is how you know that ruddy doesn't mean red in this context. You understand? We get this question all the time, and Christians want to prove so bad that David was a white man because, once again, ruddy means red, or you have red cheekbones. You understand? When you read the Bible, man, context is everything. You understand? Context is everything. Now, y'all know I got a precept to prove this, but it's in the next chapter. All right. And we're going to come back to this verse when we get to the next chapter. But for now, we're going to keep going. All right. So now we're going to get verse 13. We're going to come back to this. All right. So now this is 1 Samuel 16, and we're at verse 13. It says, then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. So David comes up, he gets anointed in the midst of his brother. The Spirit of the Lord is now with David. Everybody understand? Let's get verse 14. It says, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Verse 15. And Saul's servant said unto him, behold now, an evil spirit from the Most High troubleth thee. Now, it doesn't specify what the evil spirit was on Saul, but we do know that it was on him enough to trouble him. You understand? We also know that the Spirit of the Lord wasn't with him anymore either, but he still had rank over his military when he went out to war with the Philistines. Everybody understand? Let's keep going. Let's get verse 16. All right. Verse 16. It says, let our Lord now command thy servants, which are before thee, to seek out a man who is a cunning player on an harp. And it shall come to pass when the evil spirit from the Most High is upon thee, that he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well. You understand? So his servants are like, listen, sir, with all due respect, let us go find someone skilled in playing the harp. You understand? For your affliction. That way, when you feel trouble, we'll have a brother play this music to put your mind at ease. You understand? Verse 17. And Saul said unto his servants, provide me now a man that can play well and bring him to me. So Saul agreed with the men to go and do this. You understand? Verse 18. Then answered one of the servants and said, behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. You understand? So one cat spoke up and was like, hey man, you know what? Now that we on this topic, right? I seen one of Jesse's boys. You understand? You know, Jesse the Bethlehemite. You understand? Now he got a son who's real good at playing the harp. You understand? He's a mighty valiant man, meaning he's full of courage. He's fearless. You understand? He's very skilled in the art of war. He's prudent in matters. He shows good judgment. He's wise. I mean, this cat is solid. You feel me? I'm telling you, sir. Like this boy right here, this cat's the real deal, man. And he's a handsome brother, and the Lord is with him, man. You ought to give him a shot. You understand? That's what this brother's telling Saul. You understand? Verse 19. It says, wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse and said, send me David thy son, which is with thy sheep. You understand? Now, David was a very talented brother, man. And we just read in the previous verse some of his characteristics already. Now, even though he was a shepherd, now we found out that he was musically inclined. You understand? He's very skilled in the art of war. He's prudent in all matters. He was very smart. He's wise. He's humble. He's fearless. You understand? Although he was a pretty boy, right? Although he was a pretty boy, don't let his countenance fool you, because in a little bit, we're going to read about how seriously skilled in fighting this brother was. All right. So these cats, they went to Jesse and they asked for David under Saul's orders. You understand? Let's keep going. Let's get verse 20. It says, and Jesse took an ass laden with bread and a bottle of wine and a kid, and sent them by David his son unto Saul. All right. Verse 21. And David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. Right. So David looked up to Saul. Why? Because Saul, he was big, he was strong, he had an army and everything. You understand? So remember, Saul's father, Kish, was a mighty man too, and he had a lot of power, and so did Saul. You understand? He said, listen, man, I'm going to make you an armor bearer. An armor bearer is a bearer of weapons. You understand? So he was in charge of providing and bearing his weapons for him. You understand? Let's keep going. Let's get verse 22. It says, and Saul sent to Jesse, saying, let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. Verse 23. It says, and it came to pass, when the evil spirit from the Most High was upon Saul, that David took an harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him, right? So now, what is a harp, right? A harp is it's a very melodic musical instrument. You understand? Think about spa music, all right? Imagine, okay, how can I put, okay, imagine having a stressed out week, right? You had a stressed out week and all you want to do is escape from your reality for just a moment. You understand? Now, in the world, what we did in the world, we just got high and got on drugs to break away from reality. Well, this affliction that Saul was dealing with, it weighed heavy on him from time to time. And you understand, keeping David around to play this harp when it happens is why he found favor in his sight. You understand? Plus, David had great respect for him, so he put him to work, made him his armor bearer. You understand? Made him play his harp whenever that evil spirit came upon Saul, so that spirit can depart from him. You understand? When he's battling that affliction. You understand? So now we're in 1 Samuel 17, and we're going to keep going. We're going to start at verse 1. All right? So this 1 Samuel chapter 17, and we're starting at verse 1. It says, now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shekoh, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shekoh and Azekah. And oh man, it's a lot. He pronounced it. Of Fish Demim. You understand? Verse 2. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. You understand? Verse 3. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them. So now it's a showdown. You understand? You got the Philistines in the mountains on one side. You got the Israelites on the other side at the top of the mountain. And in between them was a valley. You understand? Verse 4. And there went out a champion of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Okay. So now Goliath, who was Goliath? Goliath was a Philistine. He was a Hamite, or so-called African. You understand? Now, according to Google, right, a cubit is 1.5 feet. Okay. Right here, it says his height was 6 cubits and a span. So according to Google, if a cubit is 1.5 feet, if you multiply that by 6, that's 9 feet tall. A span is 9 inches. So this was a really, really big, tall Hamite. You understand? This African was huge. You understand? Verse 5. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. Salakia. Salakia. Salakia for that, y'all. Okay. So we're gonna read it from the top. 1 Samuel 17, and we're gonna reread verse 5. All right. It says, and he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. All right. So now 5,000 shekels of brass is equivalent to about 125 pounds of battle gear that this man was wearing on him. You understand? Now you can only imagine how heavy this cat was walking around with 125 pounds of weight to battle in. You understand? Once again, Goliath was a big dude, man. Really, really big, man. Really, really big. And a lot of the Israelites, man, they greatly feared him because of his stature and his height. You understand? Verse 6. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. All right, so now what are greaves? Okay, greaves are the armor pieces that protect your shin, or they protect your legs. You understand? Some of the men, okay, for those who are familiar with the movie 300, right? the Spartans will wear them in battle. You understand? Around their legs before they go in and battle against the Xerxes. You understand? Or if you want to, you could just type in, you could Google search, a picture of the greaves for those who don't know what they look like. You understand? And a target of brass between his shoulders. A target of brass between his shoulders was like the shoulder pads. You understand? Verse 7. All right. It says, and the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. So the comparison of the weaver's beam, right? The comparison of the weaver beam to his staff is basically represent the thickness and the strength of the staff that this brother had. You understand? And the spearhead was 400 shekels of iron. Now, shekel converted to pounds, it varied in measurements according to Google. You understand? And you can look up the approximate weight of the spearhead on Google, but they're going to give you different measurements. All right. And so for time's sake, we won't give an exact weight measure of what the spearhead actually weighed. All we need to know is how Goliath was, how big he was, right? How big he was, how heavy this battle gear was on his body. He had a spear for his weapon, and somebody alongside him carried a shield before him. You understand? That's all we need to know. All right, let's keep going. Verse 8. It says, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. So Goliath issued a challenge. You understand? The first thing he seen was the Israelites. They formed up on the battlefield in sync, ready to go to war. You understand? So now Goliath is calling out and say, hey, you understand? Pick someone worthy of a challenge to step up against me. You understand? Verse 9. It says, if he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. So Goliath was like, listen, I'm going to issue a challenge right here, right now, in between us in this valley. You understand? So here's what's going to happen. You pick your best man for me to fight against. And if he wins by killing me, we'll be your servants. But if I win and I kill him, then you will be our servants. You understand? Verse 10. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. I'm calling Israel out today as an open challenge. Give me a man that we may fight together. Who's it going to be? I'm waiting right here. Who wants to step up against the great Goliath? Anybody. You understand? So he picking challenges. You understand? Because he's their champion. You understand? Goliath is the Philistines' champion at this time. He's looking for a worthy opponent that's going to give him a great fight. You understand? It's going to give him a run for his money, so to speak. You understand? Verse 11. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Man, Saul and his men was like, shh, man, hell no. Hell no. Salakia. Hell no. You understand? Verse 12. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. You understand? Talking about Jesse's age, how he was old in his age when he dealt with Saul. You understand? Verse 13. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the name of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shema. Verse 14. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. Okay, verse 15. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Verse 16. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. All right. When I read this scripture right here, right, this reminds me so much of Dragon Ball Z during the Cell games. You understand? Now, for those who don't know, Dragon Ball Z is a very popular Japanese manga cartoon show, right? They had an old season on the Dragon Ball Z saga called the Cell games, okay? The Cell games was hosted by an android named Cell, right? He was created to destroy and wreak havoc on the earth. So what he ends up doing in this cartoon is he goes and interrupts every TV channel broadcast, right? To host a world tournament, who pretty much said the same thing that Goliath just said. You understand? He wanted to fight the best of the best. If no one steps up, then he would destroy the world. If they win, then he don't destroy the world because he'd be dead. You understand? It reminds me so much of that. You understand? We're going to keep going. Verse 17. It says, and Jesse said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to camp to thy brethren. All right. Verse 18. And carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. All right. So Jesse pretty much telling his youngest boys, like, look here, hey, take this corn, take this cheese, you understand? Take these 10 loaves and go out there and take it to your brothers at the camp. You understand? And these cheeses right here, give it to the captain or their camp leader. You understand? That's over them. You understand? Verse 19. It says, now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. Verse 20. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. You understand? So now David arrives in the valley of Elah towards the trenches. And what he's seeing when he gets there, he's seeing the Philistines and their army assemble on the front lines, and he sees Israel on the other side doing the same thing, and they going to war with each other. You understand? Verse 21. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army, which is what I just said. All right. Verse 22. Okay. And David left his carriage and the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. So now he go and approaches the brothers, right? So first of all, he leaves the keeper in charge of the food that he got from his father that he was supposed to take to the brothers at the camp. He has somebody with him on the way there, tells them that, hey, stay right here, I'll be right back. So he goes up to these brothers, right? And now they're filling them in with what's going on, because Goliath's been on this rant for over 40 days talking about a challenge between us and him. So now in the midst of this conversation, here comes Goliath, reiterated what he's been saying for the past month and a half. You understand? Verse 23. And he talked with them, and behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard him. David heard them, which is what I just broke down with what's going on. You understand? Brothers filling them in with what's going on, and out of the camp on the Philistine side, here comes Goliath. He says the same thing over and over and over, looking for a worthy fighter to battle against him. You understand? Verse 24. It says, and all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were sore afraid. Like I said before, man, he was a mighty man, and he was greatly feared amongst us because he was so big and tall. You understand? And strong. You understand? Verse 25. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. You understand? So now you see this guy coming up right there? You see him? That's him. That's him right over there. Yeah, the tall dude right there with all that battle gear on. Yeah, him right there. That's Goliath. He's the one that's been issuing the challenge. They say the prize for killing him will be enriched with riches. You understand? And the king was going to give away his daughter and make your father's house free in Israel. You understand? Verse 26. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Okay. Now, I mentioned in the last chapter that we were going to get into David's expertise when it comes to fighting. You understand? Because David is a man of war. You understand me? The stature of Goliath didn't scare David not one bit. You understand? Because David was a little cocky and boastful too. You understand? Who the hell is this uncircumcised Philistine think he is, man? He don't scare nobody. Damn sure don't scare me. You understand? Because David was a Judite. You understand? And his brothers knew that about him. But they're not going to like it when they find him down there either. You understand? We're going to keep reading and find out what's going to happen. Verse 27. It says, and the people answered him after this manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man that killeth him. Verse 28. All right. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, talking about David. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, but thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. You understand? So now I'm going to translate with what he said. All right. So his oldest brother, Eliab, right? And he knew how cocky David was. You understand? It's just something about the heat of battle that gets David amped up and excited. You know, just like Goku, man, in Dragon Ball Z. Like, he don't care who his opponent is. He won't back down from nobody. If anybody's looking for a fight, that's your guy right there. That's the guy. He'll fight you anytime, any day, anywhere, any place. You name it, you're on. You understand? That's always been the tribe of Judah. You understand? Always fighting. If we ain't fighting, we looking for a fight. You understand? It's bred in us to have this warrior-like spirit to want to fight for something bigger than just ourselves. You understand? So now his older brother saw him, right? And he was pissed. You understand? Man, what the F you doing down here, man? And who watching over the sheep that you were supposed to be looking after? You think you slick, don't you, David? You think you real slick. You understand? And I know why you out here too. I know you too well, little brother. I know why you down here. I know where your mind is at. You came down here to see the fight. You understand? That's what his oldest brother was telling David. You understand? Verse 29. And let's see what David said. Verse 29. And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? So David like, man, what I do now or what I do this time? You understand? There shouldn't be any cause because I haven't done anything. I didn't do anything. You understand? Now you can tell that he's done this before on numerous occasions. To know your own brother and how he thinks when it comes to a fight just shows you he's clearly been through this with him before. You understand? Verse 30. And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. All right. So now, once again, David getting cocky, asking from one brother to another, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? You understand? That he should defy the armies of the living God. This cat don't scare nobody. Y'all shouldn't be afraid of him. Come on, y'all. This is the Lord's army. Now he's saying this over and over to the point that they rehearsed what he said and took it back to Saul. You understand? Because everybody around him, they was afraid of Goliath. David wasn't. You understand? So he's trying to pump him up and amp him up. Like, man, come on, man. Y'all can take this. Y'all can take this uncircumcised Philistine. Oh man, y'all got it, man. What y'all afraid of? So what? He big, man. So what? He big. This the armies of the Lord, man. Y'all got this, man. The Lord is with y'all. They ain't trying to hear that, man. They like, nah, man, nah, brother. You tripping. You understand? Man, somebody will tell Saul what this little nigga talking about, man. He talking about, man, somebody will tell Saul what this young cat just said. You understand? Verse 30. And when the words were heard which David spake, They rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. You understand? Verse 31. All right. Oh, so I just read 31. Verse 32. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Oh, man. He told Saul straight up, don't be scared of this man. He ain't nobody. You know what? I'll take him on. I'll accept this challenge. Let's find out what Saul said to David when he said this. Verse 33. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he's a man of war from his youth. So Saul is telling David, man, you can't go out there and fight him. Are you out of your mind? You just a young man. You understand? You just a young child, man. Goliath been a man of war since he was around your age, man. You don't stand a chance against him. You understand? Let's keep going. Verse 34. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. So Saul, Salaki. So David, oh yeah, you think so, Saul? Listen, let me tell you something. There was a time when I was watching my father's sheep one day. A lion and a bear came and took a lamb out of my father's flock. Now watch what David finna tell Saul what he did to this lion and this bear. You understand? Verse 35. And I went after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Now, these animals, they were after my father's sheep that I was left to watch over. I protected them with my life, defending his sheep. You understand? That's what David's telling Saul in this story. You understand? Verse 36. It says, thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he have defied the armies of the living God. Ooh, we. First of all, let that sit in your mind for just a minute. He just told Saul, thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. You understand? In the same day. First of all, he just said that he went after the animals. You understand? For those who don't know, lions and bears, they run pretty fast. You understand? They run pretty fast. This little nigga caught up with the both of them. You understand? He just said that he grabbed one by the mane and smote him and slaughtered the beast. You understand? Goliath ain't nothing but light work to me. That's what David telling Saul, man. Man, listen, man, I killed a lion and a bear for taking one of my father's sheep. Man, this uncircumcised Philistine, he ain't nothing to me. This ain't nothing but light work. You understand? This uncircumcised Philistine won't be a problem to take care of, seeing that he defied the armies of the living God. This ain't no regular men that you dealing with. This the Lord's chosen people, Saul, that he challenging. You understand? And here's the most important thing to take away from this verse. Y'all ready for it? Let's get verse 37. This is the most important thing to take away from the story that David told Saul. All right. And David said verse 37. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he would deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. See, David understood that the only reason that he was able to kill both the lion and the bear was because the Lord was with him when he did it. You understand? Just how he was with him when he delivered him, just how the Lord was with him when he delivered those animals to him, the Lord will be with David when he goes to fight Goliath. Is what he told Saul. Now Saul had enough. You understand? He heard enough. He said, okay, you know what, David? He convinced him to go on out there and do your thing. Go on out there, David. Hey, Lord be with you, huh? Lord be with you. You understand? So now, verse 38. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail. So Saul took his armor off and he placed it all on David. Gave him his headpiece, gave him his chest piece, the armor. You understand? Everything, the whole 9 yards. You understand? Verse 39. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off of him. So now, what does it mean when he said that he essayed to go and he had not proved it? You understand? Meaning he was testing the armor. You understand? That Saul put on him, making it okay. So, okay. How can I put this? All right. When Saul gave David the armor and the sword, when he put it on, he had to try it on, and he, he was finna go out and go and fight against Goliath. So anytime you put battle gear on or you're using a weapon, you understand, you want to make sure that you're good with it. You test it with it. Make sure it's a good fit. Make sure it's not malfunction. Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it going to slow you down? The sword that I got, is it too heavy? Can I thrust with it? You understand? Can I guard? You understand? That's what it's talking about. But he just said that he couldn't go out and wear this equipment to fight Goliath because he wasn't trained to utilize it. You understand? So now, once again, David understands the art of war. He understands that wearing something too heavy in a fight is going to slow him down. You understand? He'll get tired. He's going to fatigue on the battlefield. You understand? Same thing with the sword. He didn't utilize it to its full potential just yet. You understand? He needed an alternative. And let's find out what he took instead. You understand? Verse 40. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near the Philistine. All right, so now after, you understand, David got that heavy battle gear off, he put that sword down. Man, he got him some rock. He got him a sling, got him 5 rocks. Yeah, man, that's all I need right here. Give me the staff right here. Let me get the staff. I got my sling. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 smooth rock. Yep, give me this. Put this in my pouch. This reminds me so much, you understand, of these Japanese manga shows, man, where it's always that one awkward person who prepares for a fight and make you just want to scratch your head and be like, man, I know damn well he ain't finna go out there with just those things. This is gonna be a disaster waiting to happen. He took what he had and approached Goliath to face him. Now, mind you, everybody's afraid of Goliath. This is the champion, right? He's big, he's mighty, he's strong, he's powerful. You understand? Majority of the Israelites, they feared him except David. David took off the armor that Saul had, got rid of the sword, said, nah, man, I can't fight in that. He just got something light, man. I got the staff, I got my sling, I got 5 rocks. This is all I need. Let's do it. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. You understand? Verse 41. It says, and the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. Verse 42. It says, and when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy. There's that word again, ruddy, and of a fair countenance. So now, this was Goliath. Remember, this is a man who was seasoned in war for a number of years since he was about David's age. You understand? So now, when he looked down upon David, he looked down on him like he was disgusted with them for them sending him out. You understand? What the man, this your best warrior? Him? Man, this is an insult. Goliath had a strong hatred for David when he saw this pretty boy. You understand? That made nobody respect him because he didn't look like a killer. You understand? But if you know anything about David, David was a stone cold killer with a pretty face. You understand? So now we're going to read it from the top because I want to break down what ruddy is, because I said I was going to break it down in the last chapter. This is the precept. All right. So we're going to read it from the top, verse 42. 1 Samuel 17 and 42. It says, and when David looked about and saw David, he disdained him. For he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. You understand? Ruddy meaning what? Let's go back into the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. And read what the definition of ruddy was again. All right. So now this is ruddy on page 510 in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. It says ruddy, a word used to refer to a red or fair complexion, in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews, meaning what? David was a young, tender, smooth, good-looking young brother. You understand? He didn't look like a warrior at the time. You telling me Goliath looked at David like he was disgusted because he was a white man? Because he was red? You understand? If the Jew, okay, watch this. If the Jews were white, right? If the Jews were white, okay, if you take from this scripture, because it says ruddy, and you automatically assume that David was a white boy because it says he was ruddy, meaning red, depending on context. If the Jews were white, then why would Goliath be shocked that David was red if all the other Jews were white? Meaning David would have looked like the rest of the Jews. You understand? This was not talking about him being white. This was talking about him being fair-skinned, a beautiful complexion. He was a pretty boy. You understand? When you look at this brother, he don't look like he could fight nobody. He just looked like a, you know what I'm saying, like a pretty boy, like all the women after him. You know, he don't fight. He don't want to get dirty. You understand? That's the type of brother David looked in comparison to Goliath. Goliath was this big, ugly, tall, hand-made gorilla monster looking. You know what I mean? Just gritty and nasty with it. You understand? And you looking at him looking disgusted, like this is an insult. This is an insult. You understand? That's what it means when it said, you understand, that he disdained him. For he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. You understand? He felt insulted that a pretty boy came to challenge Goliath. You understand? Who don't look like that he never killed anything in his life. You understand? Verse 43. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staffs? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. So not only was it insulting that they sent David out to fight Goliath, in his mind, right, he's already feeling disrespected by them sending this young man out to fight this Philistine champion. You understand? Then he further insults him by bringing a stick to battle as if he was a dog. You understand? And his hatred was strong against David. You understand? So he cursed him in the name of his gods that the Philistines bow down and worship. He didn't curse him in the name of our God. He cursed him in the name of the Philistines' God and all the other gods that they praise and worship and bow down to. You understand? Verse 44. It says, and the Philistines said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. In other words, when I'm done with you, boy, I'm going to feed you to the birds and the beasts of the field, where your corpse is going to rot in the wilderness. That's what I'm going to do to you, little man. Verse 45. Here's what David said. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. Verse 46. All right. It says, this day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee and take thy head from thee. Ooh. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. So now David walking tall, standing his ground, pretty much saying this right here. You came to me with a sword, with a spear, and a shield. I don't need those things to bring you down. You know why I don't need those things to bring you down, Goliath, you uncircumcised Philistine? Because I came in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you defied and challenged. Today is the day the Lord's going to deliver you into my hand. Not only am I going to smite thee, I'm going to cut your goddamn head off. And I'm going to give your corpse to the birds and the wild beasts in the earth. That all the earth is going to know that there is a power in Israel. Boy, David snapped, boy. You understand me? Boy. See, you gotta be this, you gotta be in the right spirit to read these scriptures, man. David was a stone cold killer. You understand? David was hardcore, man. You understand? This is who Christ descended from, the seed of David. This is who we're reading about right here. And he was a youth. This man wasn't full grown yet. Full of courage, full of even fearless. You understand? Listen, Salagia. Let's just keep going, man, because I get too excited and just keep ramming on about how fire this verse is to what David said to this Philistine. You understand? Not only am I gonna kill you, I'm gonna cut your head off. You understand? And then I'm gonna feed your corpse to the birds and to the wild beasts in the wilderness. You understand? This was David as a young man speaking to the champion, the champion of the Philistines. You understand? This was David talking to him like this. You understand? Verse 47. It says, and all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. So in other words, in the whole assembly, everybody out here is going to know that the Lord don't save with just a physical sword and a spear, because the battle is already the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. You understand? You better believe that. Say what you want to say about my boy David, man. That nigga was one West. You understand? That's one of the coldest verses in the Bible that you're going to read about a prophet. You understand? You're going to put some respect on David's zeal for the Lord. You understand? This is the throne that Christ is going to sit on. This brother was hardcore. You see where he get it from. You understand? David was all about that life. You understand? He finna bring all the smoke to him. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And that fire was in his zeal for the Lord. You understand? Let's keep going. Verse 48. It says, and it came to pass when the Philistines arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Man, David didn't waste no time. You understand? Listen, he hauled ass to the Philistines' army toward Goliath. He didn't waste no time. Goliath started stepping, David stepped. He didn't wait for him to make the first move. David hauled ass coming straight for him. You understand? Verse 49. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. Good night. Do y'all have any idea how far back that rock was in that sling for him to shoot it in the middle of Goliath's forehead when it sunk all the way through? That joker cracked his skull with no sword on his first attempt. I'm telling y'all, man, David was a bad man. I'm telling you, man, David was a bad man. This was in his youth. You understand? Remember, this cat slayed a lion and a bear. Now, it don't say if the witnesses were around when he did it, but we believe it because it's in the Bible and it says that he did it. You understand? Now he slew the Philistines' champion. The man Saul and the rest of the Israelites greatly feared. To this young man came on the scene and showed them that there is a God in Israel. Barakataya Hawashai, man, on that victory to David, man. You understand? David was a killer, man. I'm telling you. Verse 50. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David, right? Because remember, what did he say he was going to do to him? He was going to cut his head off. You understand? Well, David didn't have a sword. All he had was a staff and a sling and 5 rocks. But who did have a sword? Goliath had one. You understand? Let's keep reading. Verse 51. Therefore, David ran and stood upon the Philistine and took his sword and drew it out of the sheath thereof and slew him and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. You understand? So now the tables just turned around. You understand? When the Philistines saw that their champion was defeated and his head was cut off, everybody saw what he did with a sling and 1 rock. them Philistines hard ass. You understand? Because if what David said was true, that there's a God in Israel, then what David just did reignited the courage that the Israelites needed to prevail against the Philistines. Oh man, it's over, man. We need to get the hell up out of here. You understand? We need to get up out of here. Verse 53. It says, and the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. So they sent them on a run, chased them all over their cities and territories. They destroyed their homes and took all their goods, took all their merchandise. You understand? Verse 54. All right. It says, and David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. Verse 55. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, as thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. So Saul looking back like, God damn. Who is this? Who is this nigga's father? Who is his daddy? You understand? Saul's very interested in finding out who David's father was. So then he go and ask Abner, who is this boy's father? And when it says, as thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. That's another way of saying, you know what? Okay, so like in the world, you know how people say, man, I swear, I promise on everything I love. That's pretty much what he's saying here. As thy soul liveth, man, I don't know. You understand? I don't know. Verse 56. And the king said, inquire thou whose son the stripling is. Hey man, somebody go find out and bring me back news as to who this boy's father is. You understand? Verse 57. It says, and as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. Boy, listen, man. David is so hardcore, man. This young cat was walking around with Goliath's head in his hand, walking around with it. You understand? Like, yeah, nigga, I did it. Not him, but it was the Lord who delivered him in his hands. You understand? And there's the prize. There's the proof. He did it. You understand? What? David is hardcore, man. You understand? So, like, where I'm at. Verse 58. And Saul said to him, whose son art thou, thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. So now, notice throughout these stories, right? When you read about someone who's done amazing things, they never ask, who is your mother? Or what's your mama name? It's always, who is your father? Why? Because he is the seed of his father, which is what we go by in the UPK. You are who you are based off the seed of your father, because of who your father is. You understand? So now we are in 1 Samuel 18 and 1. All right. So now this 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 1. It says, and it came to pass when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Right? Meaning what? The brotherhood between David and Jonathan, it was exceptional. You understand? And that's the love that we supposed to have amongst each other. He never done anything wrong against them, never stole from them, never robbed them, plot against them, none of that. These two brothers, these two brothers' brotherhood was solid. It was A1. It was exceptional. You understand? As it was supposed to be. You understand? Verse 2. And Saul took him that day and would let him go no more home to his father's house. All right. So Saul like, listen, man, you stay with me, kid. So make yourself at home. All right. Verse 3. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. Verse 4. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him, and gave it to David, and his garments, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his girdle. You understand? So in other words, he did what any brother would do, man. He gave him the clothes off his back. Why? Because David wasn't rich. He didn't have the amount of wealth that Saul had. he was still a king to the people. You understand? So he was very rich and very, very wealthy. He was staying in their house. You understand? So listen, man, you family now, man. So what's mine is yours. You understand? Mi casa, su casa. You understand? Verse 5. It says, and David went out whithersoever Saul sent him, and behaved himself wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. So now David is moving up in the ranks. You understand? He started as a shepherd, then he went as an armor bearer. Now he has rank over his men of war and was accepted in the sight of all the people. You understand? Just like Samuel took Saul in as a young man and showed him the ropes. Now Saul is doing the same thing unto David. Everybody understand? Verse 6. It says, and it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out, Salakia, that the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing, to meet King Saul, with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. So this was the turning point between Saul and David. This conversation the women had over the number of bodies, you understand that they each slaughtered. Saul killed thousands, but David is 10,000s. In other words, David killed 10 times over Saul's killings, is what we're going to read about. You understand? And it's going to turn the whole tide around everything. You understand? Salah, hold on. Salaki, I broke down the wrong verse. Let me go back and reread verse 6 and break that down. Salaki. Verse 6, and it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing, to meet King Saul, with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. All right, so this is why it was hard on Saul when the kingdom was going to be taken from him. You understand? Because as a king, right? As a king, fame comes with the title, right? You got money, you got power, you got an army, and you got lots of women. You understand? They was coming from all different cities in Israel just to come out and meet King Saul over the victory over the Philistines. You understand? So now they celebrated. They singing, they dancing, they playing music all around them. You understand? Saul felt like a hero. You understand? He felt like a hero. Verse 7. And the women answered one another as they played and said, Saul have slain thousands, and David his 10,000s. This was the turning point between Saul and David. You understand? This conversation that the women had right here over the number of bodies that they slaughtered, Saul killing thousands, but David his 10,000s. In other words, David killed 10 times over Saul's killings. You understand? That's what they were saying. Now let's find out how Saul felt about this when these women were conversating about this. Verse 8. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom? Man. Saul, okay. As you can see, Saul was very jealous, and he was also a hater, as you can see right here. You understand? He got mad as hell because the women said David killed 10,000 and he killed thousands. So in his mind, right? Okay. Saul was very arrogant and very, very selfish. You understand? So you gotta so put yourself in his mind state. You understand? So in his mind, right? You can't outshine his glory. You understand? You can't outshine his glory. You can't outdo him because he's the king. Otherwise, he's going to have a problem with you. You understand? Even on both occasions where he messed up, disobeying what the Lord told him to do. You understand? Instead, he did what he wanted to do. You understand? Because he's selfish, very, very selfish. You understand? He didn't like what was said coming from the women. He took it as a high level of disrespect. It was so bad. You understand? He said, what did he say? He said, what can he have more but the kingdom? Meaning, in other words, so what? He got more bodies than me. So what? That's all right. But guess what? So imagine somebody jealous, right? Somebody jealous and they in their feelings and they just sitting back like, and they just mean mugging. You understand? Because you got women dancing all around you. You think they happy. I mean, they happy that you got the victory over the Philistines and Goliath, the Philistines champion, has been slain, right? So of course they're happy about that, but now they're bragging that David had 10,000s, killed 10,000, and Saul only killed 1,000. So imagine Saul just sitting back like this with a mean mug just hating. Like, you understand? So what? He got more bodies than me. You understand? That's all right. That's all right. But guess what though? Guess what though? That nigga ain't got a kingdom. That nigga ain't got a kingdom. You understand? Where his big house at, huh? That nigga staying with me. What's his money looking like? Huh? What his money looking like? He ain't got no money like I got money. Where his army at? He ain't got no army. I got one. Where's his? Where his fly ass garment? I got a fly ass garment. He don't. You understand? He was a shepherd. You understand? The boy look after sheep. You understand? The one battle, he gets more kills than me, and all of a sudden, he's a hero all of a sudden. You understand? Man, he made me sick, man. Just thinking about it. This is a lot of us in our communities. You understand? This is a lot of us always hating on somebody else's success when we supposed to be on the same side. You understand? Now I got a precept to prove this. So we're gonna hold what we got, right? And we're gonna pull Proverbs chapter 6, verse 34. All right. We're gonna go to Proverbs 6 and 34. I actually got two precepts I'm gonna pull. I'm gonna go to Proverbs 6 and 34. 6:34. All right. So now, this is Proverbs 6 and 34, all right? It says, for jealousy is the rage of a man. Therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. This is what drove Saul in his rage. Jealousy, man. Jealousy over something petty. You understand? Like, if we in war, right? And we fighting on the same side, I don't give a damn how many bodies you drop. A victory is a victory. You understand? Both of y'all were able to come home. No big deal. Saul made it a big deal. You understand? It says, for jealousy is the rage of a man. Therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. This is Saul right here. You understand? I got another precept I'm going to pull. Proverbs 16 and 18. All right? One more precept. This is Proverbs 16 and 18. It says, pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. What's a haughty spirit? A haughty spirit is a prideful, arrogant, think you better than everybody kind of spirit. You understand? You carrying yourself in the mind state, destruction is around. If you carry yourself in that mind state, then destruction is around the corner. You understand? You better stay away from this cat at all costs, which is what we're going to see from David, avoiding him numerous times because he felt this way against him. You understand? So now we're going to go back to 1 Samuel 18. And we're going to start at verse 9. All right. So now this is 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 9. It says, and Saul eyed David from that day and forward, meaning from that day, the topic was discussed. He had his eye on him ever since. You understand? He wasn't going to let this go. You understand? Verse 10. It says, and it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand as at other times. And there was a javelin in Saul's hand. Verse 11. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice. Meaning what? This nigga was still mad about yesterday, man. Still in his feelings. He won't feel better with himself or satisfied till now, until he sees David dead by his hands. He wanted to impale David to where he pinned him on the wall. That's after a javelin is a long spear. You understand? And when you throw that when you throw the spear hard enough, and you understand, and you pin it on the wall, he wanted to pin him on the wall like this with the javelin through him like this right here. That's effed up. You understand? Ain't that effed up Israel? This is Saul. You understand? Feeling this way toward our King David, soon to be King David. You understand? Verse 12. All right, we're gonna keep going. Verse 12. Okay. And Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him and was departed from Saul. Verse 13. Therefore Saul removed him from him and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. So now, at first, right? At first, David was rolling with Saul everywhere he went. Remember when he was an armor bearer, he was with him everywhere he went. You understand? But now to remove him from his presence, Saul made him a captain over 1,000. So now he was back on the front lines, leading the charge in every battle, coming back victorious. You understand? Verse 14. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Verse 15. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. Why the hell was Saul afraid of him when David carried himself very wisely? Why do you think he was why do you think he was afraid of that? Think about what he just did at his house. He almost tried, he wanted to kill David, but he missed. You understand? He missed. Why did this bother him? Why was he afraid why was he Salakia? Let me read it from the top. Wherefore when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. I'm gonna tell you why Saul was afraid of David. Just like anybody who's paranoid, right? Think about it. If you come after somebody for no reason, right? For any petty reason at all whatsoever, right? And they don't retaliate, it's gonna bother you to know what that person is up to. You understand? It's only gonna be a matter of time before he strikes. The question is, when will he strike? You understand? I gotta sleep with one eye open. I know he's very skilled in the art of war. I can't slip up and let him get me. Because David didn't give off the countenance like Saul. You understand? Whereas if this happened to Saul, right? Saul would retaliate if somebody tried to do that to him. David did not retaliate to him. Otherwise, he would have retaliated and said something like, "Man, Saul, you better watch your back because you effing with the wrong nigga. Keep it up, and I'm gonna smite you probably to this wall right here and cut your head off too, like I did Goliath." David wasn't sweating it at all. You understand? And because David wasn't worried about it, that's what made Saul afraid of him, because he couldn't read what he might be up to. And he also knew that the Lord was with him. You understand? That's what he was afraid of. You understand? Verse 16. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. All right. Verse 17. It says, and Saul said to David, behold, my elder daughter Merab, her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou valiant for me and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, let not my hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. Man, Saul wanted to send David out to fight his battles with the Philistines, hoping that they would kill him so that he wouldn't have to. You understand? That's what he was thinking in his mind, right? But out loud, this was more of a dowry to David. You understand? Saul was going to give him his oldest daughter as a wife if he fights his battles, if he fights the Lord's battles, Salakia. You understand? So now, what is a dowry? A dowry is a mutual agreement between the father and the man worthy of marrying the father's daughter in the midst of an exchange. You understand? You get something from me, and I'm gonna get something from you. You understand? It's an exchange in the dowry. You understand? That's what was taking place. All right. Verse 18. And David said unto Saul, who am I? And what is my life or my father's family in Israel that I should be son-in-law to the king? You understand? the reason David asked this question is because David was a very humble young man. You understand? He didn't think, okay, David thought highly of himself when it came to fighting in battles, but when it came to like relationships and you bigging him up like he's this big great person that just deserved to be with somebody, David wasn't like that. David was very humbling, very prudent, very wise and understanding. You understand? He didn't think highly of himself in regards to him feeling like, the woman that he should marry should be the king's daughter. You understand? Saul was like this at one point when he was young. You understand? When Samuel anointed Saul, Saul didn't feel worthy to be of any interest to Samuel. You understand? We brought that out last week. You understand? Verse 19. But it came to pass at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given unto Adriel. Adriel the Maholathite to wife. You understand? Verse 20. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. And they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. Verse 21. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistine may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the twain. Still plotting against David, man. Do y'all understand the mindset of Saul and how much he hated David? You understand? Still tripping about a couple days ago about them bragging about how many more body kills that David had over Saul. Still tripping over this. You understand? Still plotting against David, man. So he's like, okay, I got it all figured out. Okay. I'm going to give him Michal. You understand? My daughter. I'm going to give him Michal in hopes of she becoming a snare unto him, right? Even though she loved David, Saul knew that she was a piece of work because he was hoping in his plan that she would trap him up. You understand? He wanted David stressed out at home, his spirit be down from dealing with her. You understand? And when he goes out to battle and his mind's somewhere else and he, you understand, to where he can't focus. You understand? That way, the Philistines will have a weakness to use as an advantage over him, and he falls in battle. Saul is relieved. This was his grand scheme of plans. You understand? Trying to get rid of David. You understand? Verse 22. It says, and Saul commanded his servants, saying, commune with David secretly, and say, behold, the king have delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now, therefore, be the king's son-in-law, right? So now, this whole plot that Saul came up with, this was in a secret council between Saul and his servants, right? So David has no idea about this, okay? Saul wants his servants to seduce David into believing, okay, hey, David, can I talk to you for a second? Hey, listen, man, So Saul thought this all the way through, you understand? And he's come to the conclusion that he would really, 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 really love to have you as the king's son-in-law. I mean, think about it, David. The king loves you. We love you. Everybody loves you around here. It only makes sense to have you as his son-in-law. What do you think about that, David? What do you think about that? You understand? That's how they approach to him. You understand? Verse 23. And Saul's servants spake those words in the ears of David, which is what I just broke down, right? They came to him seducing him with this. You understand? And David said, seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed? So David questions his servants, right? So David's like, man, you think it's easy being the king's son-in-law? You understand? That's a big deal to me. I don't know about you, but that's a big deal to me, y'all. Like, I don't have anything to offer to Saul for her. I'm a poor man. I'm nobody. I don't look at myself as someone worthy of having Saul's daughter. You understand? That's the approach that he came to the servants. You understand? Verse 24. And the servants of Saul told him, saying, on this manner spake David. So they pretty much relayed the message back to Saul. You understand? All right, so what he say? What he say? So they pretty much just, you understand, repeated what David told the servants to tell Saul. All right. Verse 25. And Saul said, thus shall ye say to David, the king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. Boy, good night, man. You got to be a sick bastard to want 100 foreskins. Ew. Salakia. You got to be a sick bastard to want something like that in return for your daughter. Ew. Salakia. You understand? I'm going to read this from the top. And Saul said, thus shall you say to David, the king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. So in other words, Saul telling his servants, man, you go back and tell them, man, don't even worry about the dowry. Have him bring me 100 foreskins of the Philistines to avenge me of my enemies. You understand? While still praying on his downfall. You understand? He's betting everything that, hey, when I send this cat to battle the Philistines, this nigga's gonna die. You understand? He's gonna lose. You understand? That's what that's what he's betting. That's what he's betting on. You understand? Verse 26. It says, and when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. So now David happy as hell that he didn't have to bring no money as part of the dowry. You know why? Because he get to fight. You understand? David loves to fight. You understand? He get to fight, and all he wanted was 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And I don't have a certain time to get it. No sweat, no problem. Done. I got you. I got you. You understand? Verse 27. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. You understand? So not only did David go out and get it done, he brought him double. All Saul asked for was 100 foreskins. This nigga brought back 200. You understand? So as promised, Saul gave him his daughter to Michal, the wife. You understand? Verse 28. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. Listen, man. Listen. Now y'all know damn well that Saul was somewhere beating on his office table or throwing something around, flipping out like, man, God damn it, man. God damn it. Shit, man. Salakia, damn it. You understand? I can't get this nigga to fall for nothing. I tried to kill him with the javelin. He got away. I sent him to fight the Philistines and retrieve 100 foreskins. This nigga came back alive and brought me 200, man. Damn. How is he doing it? How is he doing it, man? Somebody tell me, how is he doing it? How? Man. You know what? I see now. I know why. It's because the Lord is with him. That's why. The Lord is with him. You understand? Because remember, Saul been trying to plot to kill David for a while over something petty, and he came back alive, man. He came back alive and gave him double over what he asked for. You understand? Listen, man. You got, like, once again, you got to be in this. You gotta have the zeal for the Lord to read this story and understand what was taking place between him coming up and his upbringing to him going out and fighting Goliath, the champion, the Philistines champion. You understand? But nobody else wanted to do it because they was afraid. He overcome this battle, chopped his head off. You understand? The women out there celebrated, bragging about how many more body counts he got over Saul. You understand? To him staying in his house. You understand? Giving him garments, giving him clothes, giving him weapons and stuff like that. Made him a captain over his army. You understand? David getting a little fame, but he's still humbling himself, man. He's humbling himself because, everything that he got, it wasn't because of just him. He knew it because the Lord was with him when he got anointed by Samuel back during that sacrifice. You understand? The Lord was with him from that day on. You understand? That's why he was successful. That's why he was getting all those victories. You understand? And he knew that. He knew that it wasn't because of him. It was because the Lord was with him. Everybody understand? Verse 29. It says, and Saul was yet the more afraid of David. And Saul became David's enemy continually. How ironic is it, right? To have someone so close that to make how ironic is it to have someone so close you make out to be your enemy that you're afraid of because you know the Lord is with him? David was Saul's arch nemesis, all because of what? Because of more body kills than his. You understand? That's why. What time is it? So I'm a little bit over my time tonight. So with that concludes tonight's part 2. There will be a part 3 series to continue. And I'm telling you, man, it's a lot to learn from David's story, man. It's one of my favorites in the Bible, man. We're going to go through it and we're going to continue picking it up next week with part 3 series. You understand? The story of King David part 3 next week. All right. So with that, let me get the security announcements. Slovakia, give me a minute. Give me 1 minute, y'all. Get this loaded up. It's a little slow right now. Slovakia, bear with me for a moment. All right. Shalom, Israel. We are the ISUPK, start out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for a new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers chapter 18, verse 21. Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 through 10. Means 10th in the Hebrew, ma'ashara. 10% of every penny of any increase that the Lord gives you. Give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, which is a free will offering for priests, not mandatory whatsoever amount you would like. You understand? Upcoming holy convocations. We got the Passover down in Cocoa Beach, Florida in April. You understand? If you don't have your hotel reservations, get with your camp leader on all that information, man. This year's Passover was excellent. You understand? And I'm looking forward to the next Passover this next year down in Cocoa Beach, Florida, man, where we all come together under one roof for a few days to celebrate the Lord's Passover, man. You understand? If you haven't been, man, I highly suggest you, man. You need to come out, man, and see what true brotherhood is really all about in the ISUPK. You understand? And with that, we say a majum, which means to stand. We're going to give a courtesy salute to the men online, men of Israel. A majum Shabbat, a majum Barak. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shabbarakatham. May the Most High bless you in the name of Christ. Yazamatam, his hands down. I want to give a courtesy salute to the sisters online. Men of Israel. Amazim Shabbat. Majim. Rock. Yahweh Shamar Latha Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah. May the Most High watch over you in the name of Christ. Yazamatam, his hands down. Class dismissed.